Hello and welcome. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran and you're watching Newsnight on DD India, your primetime destination for news and bespoke analysis. It's good to have you again with us. All right, on the show tonight, talks continued on Thursday to end the farmers' protest. Now, after a nearly 8-hour-long meeting, it was decided that the next round of talks will take place on the 5th of December. We take a closer look at the issues at hand. Also on the show, Cyclone Burevi is headed in the direction of southern India. We get you the latest on that as well, plus updates from India and around the world, all that and much more coming up over the next 1 hour. But first, as always, the headlines. The fourth round of talks conclude between the farmers and the centre. Government gives assurance of considering all the issues raised by the farmers. Talks on to resolve farmers' agitation. Agriculture Minister once again reassures that APMC Act and MSP will continue to be in practice. Says government does not carry any ego as far as satisfying the farmers is concerned. Fifth round of talks now to be held on Saturday. A nearly 20% increase in the government's paddy procurement for the Kharif 2021 season. Punjab alone accounts for more than 60% of the procurement. Government continues the minimum support price for other crop, benefiting lakhs of farmers. Tamil Nadu and Kerala brace for Cyclone Burevi. Relief camps and control centres set up. NDRF teams on standby. The Prime Minister assures all possible help to the states. Burevi could make landfall on Friday morning, but its effect was felt this afternoon. Navy Chief Admiral Karambir Singh says the Navy is prepared to handle the dual challenge of COVID-19 pandemic and China's attempt to change the line of actual control. Also says that a work on a new aircraft carrier is on. It's only a matter of time before the indigenous aircraft carrier becomes a reality. Nepal's foreign minister to visit India. Indian Foreign Ministry spokesperson also says Pakistan is linking the Kulbhushan Yadav case with another prisoner's case, which is not proper. Actor Rajinikanth to launch his political party in January. Announcement to take place on 31st December. Move comes a few months ahead of the Tamil Nadu election. And the third phase of Jammu and Kashmir's District Development Council election to take place on Friday. 33 constituencies to go to the polls. Meanwhile, counting of votes in the Hyderabad civic poll to be held on Friday. Right, let me dive straight into our cover story. Talks continued on Thursday to resolve the farm agitation. The protesters, many of whom are from Punjab, are holding a sit-in at the Delhi border. Agriculture Minister Narendra Singh Tomar said the government is serious about farmers' concerns, that they expect a positive outcome from the talks. Here's a report. After 3 rounds of extensive talks with farmers on 14th October, 13th November and 1st December, the centre once again actively engaged with the farmers on Thursday. Union Ministers Narendra Singh Tomar and Piyush Goyal met with farmers' delegations for the 4th round of talks aimed at resolving the ongoing protest seeking repeal of the new Farm Acts. Union Minister of State for Commerce Som Prakash, who is a lawmaker from Punjab, also took part in the talks with representatives from 32 unions. The government had asked the farmers to identify specific issues related to the 3 acts for discussion. The government has made it clear that it has no qualms about giving a patient hearing to the demands of the farmers and has agreed to consider the demands of the farmers in a positive and constructive way. After almost 7.5 hours of marathon meeting, it was decided that the next round of the meeting will take place on 5th December.
आज बैठक का चौथा चरण समाप्त हुआ है और परसों दोपहर में 2 बजे दोबारा से यूनियन के साथ सरकार की बातचीत होगी। मुझे लगता है आज बहुत अच्छे वातावरण में चर्चा हुई है और किसानों ने बहुत ठीक से अपने विषयों को रखा है। सरकार के पक्ष को किसान यूनियन ने पूरे संयम के साथ सुना है और उसके बाद जो बिंदु निकले हैं उन बिंदुओं पर हम सब लोगों की लगभग सहमति बनी है कि इन पर सरकार विचार करेगी।
Talking to reporters, Minister Narendra Singh Tomar made it clear that all the demands that were raised by the farmer unions are not outside the purview of the centre's consideration. In effect, Narendra Singh Tomar listed the issues raised by the farmer union and clearly indicated that the centre will adopt a positive approach towards it.
किसान यूनियन और किसानों की चिंता है कि जो नया एक्ट आया है उससे एपीएमसी वो ख़त्म हो जाएगी। भारत सरकार इस बात पर विचार करेगी कि एपीएमसी सशक्त हो और एपीएमसी का उपयोग और बढ़े। यूनियन की चिंता है कि एसडीएम कोर्ट छोटा कोर्ट है और न्यायालय में उन्हें जाने की अनुमति होनी चाहिए। इस बात पर यूनियंस का काफ़ी बल था और इसलिए हम लोगों ने उस विषय को भी अलग से निकाला कि सरकार उस पर विचार करे। कहीं से लेकर कहीं तक कोई भी किसान की जमीन की लिखा पढ़ी नहीं कर सकता है, इस बात का प्रावधान एक्ट में ही है। लेकिन फिर भी लोगों की शंका है, तो शंका का निवारण करने के लिए सरकार तैयार है कि एमएसपी चल रही थी, एमएसपी चल रही है, आने वाले कल में भी चलती रहेगी। इसकी आश्वस्ति भी हम किसान भाइयों को दिलाएंगे।
The government has decided to adopt a very cordial approach and is seemingly willing to give a positive and sympathetic approach to the issues and concerns raised by the farmers. The centre has clearly declared its intent to find a solution to the issue and has given an extended hand to the farmers. It has not shied away from deciding to consider any of the demands raised by the farmers. And as Prime Minister Modi said in Varanasi, the intent is as clear as the waters of the holy Ganges. The centre has made it clear already, including the Agriculture Minister, that the APMC and MSP have been there, is there and will remain in place notwithstanding anything. All eyes will be on the farmer unions and the next round of talks. The nation will pray that the issue is resolved and the farmers are satisfied with the proactive and sympathetic approach. Newsnight Desk, DD India. Now, meanwhile, there are farmers who are all praised for the new farm acts which have benefited them. Take a listen.
इस वर्ष मैंने जो है लगभग अपना 20% जो सेब है वो कॉर्पोरेट सेक्टर में दिया है और वहाँ मुझे जो है काफ़ी फ़ायदा हुआ है इस वर्ष। इन कृषि कानूनों के आने से हमें काफ़ी हद तक फ़ायदा हो सकता है।
नए कृषि कानूनों का स्वागत करता हूं। नए कानून किसानों को बिचौलिया या अन्य एजेंसियों से मुक्ति दिलाएंगे और किसानों को उनके उत्पादों की कीमत तय करने में सुविधा प्रदान करेंगे। मैं इस कानून के लिए वास्तव में केंद्र सरकार का आभारी हूं। मैं नलवाड़ी जिले के पन्नी गांव का एक प्रगतिशील किसान हूं। मैं केंद्र सरकार द्वारा किसानों के हित में पारित किए गए 3 कृषि कानूनों का स्वागत करता हूं। नए कानून किसानों को बिचौलिया या अन्य एजेंसियों से मुक्ति दिलाएंगे, साथ ही किसानों को उनके उत्पादों की कीमत तय करने में सुविधा प्रदान करेंगे। मैं इस कानून के लिए केंद्र सरकार का आभारी हूं।
नई नीति में किसानों को खुली व्यापार करने की छूट मिली है। किसी भी जगह हम सामान को बेच सकते हैं।
मोदी जी ने किसानों के हित में जो बिल पारित किया है उससे हमें काफ़ी फायदा हुआ है। ये बिल आने के बाद हम अपने धान की फसल को बाहर के बाजार में बेच सकते हैं।
धान ला बाहर में बेच सकत हन।
New agriculture acts which is favorable to the farmers. I don't understand why the farmers are hesitating, I don't know. But as far as a practicing farmer, I know that government providing lot of infrastructure. Government told free to sell anywhere in the country, anywhere in the world. That is enough.
Right, time now for our In Focus segment in which we are discussing about talks on to resolve farmers' issues. And joining me are 2 very special guests, Dr. Ashok Dalwai, the Chief Executive Officer of the National Rain-Fed Area Authority, is also the Chairman of the Committee on Doubling of Farmers' Income, and Mr. Alok Sinha, the former Chairman cum Managing Director of the Food Corporation of India. Dr. Dalwai and Mr. Sinha, welcome to Newsnight. If I can start with you, Dr. Dalwai, your thoughts on why these protests are taking place. I mean, is it a case of misplaced or irrational fear or fear of the unknown on the part of the various stakeholders, including middlemen, which is sort of seem to be spearheading this agitation?
Yeah, thank you very much. The government has brought these new laws which reflect the liberalization and the reform momentum in the agriculture sector, which had been long pending.
Right.
For long, the demand of the farmers, farmers' leaders, farmers' representatives, as also of the intellectuals and economists has been to create a free and open market whereby the agriculturists are able to sell their produce to anyone, anytime, and across the country.
Right.
We have had a restricted environment so far, or a regulated environment under the APMC Act. Of course, APMCs themselves were a progressive intervention made in 1950s and 1960s, when we didn't have any agriculture marketing structure in our country in a proper manner. However, we need to keep changing. That time was an era of deficit. Today is an era of surpluses.
Right.
When we have surpluses, there is always supply in excess of demand. Means that the farmer producers are not able to find adequate demand for their produce within their village, within their taluk, within their district or state. In order to create a demand for the agriculture produce, we need to enable the farmers to reach out to the far range market. And far range markets always exist outside the district or outside the state, wherever there is a consumption. If we have a regulated market, like an APMC, for example, which has a very definitive jurisdiction confined to a taluk or a district, obviously we have created a wall and we are not allowing the farmers to go across the wall. We need a vision, translation into reality, and that vision is one nation, one market.
Absolutely.
New reforms, new laws, particularly the Direct Trade Act, it now breaks the walls of districts and states and allows the farmers to reach out from the production zone to the consumption zone, and the consumption zone could be anywhere else.
Absolutely.
The consumer could be a householder, it could be a bulk purchaser, it could be a processor, it could be an exporter, it could be anybody. So when we are now able to connect through a hassle-free law, the production zone and the consumption zone across the length and breadth of the country, we're creating a huge market.
Right.
And that market will lead to competitiveness, a healthy competitiveness, and therefore discover prices better for the agriculture produce. And this particular act is supplemented by the amendments to the Essential Commodities Act. Essential Commodities Act was once again designed during the era of deficits, where there was a fear of speculation, black marketing, hoarding.
Right.
Today, that fear is not there because we are producing more than what we need. So it is important that we also enable the purchasers, it could be any trader, as also the farmers, to transact more freely. If we had a limit on the quantity of agriculture produce that can be stored and that can be transported, obviously no trader is going to come forward to purchase. If we want more purchasers to come and offer the prices for the agriculture produce, we certainly need to remove all restrictions. Hence, you should read both these laws, the law that enables direct trade across the country and the reforms or the amendments to the Essential Commodities Act as supplementary and complementary. And the third act, which enables what is called contract for farming as well as services, is nothing but a risk negotiating tool. As we know, there are price fluctuations immediately after the harvest. The farmer producer, who may not be able to hold on for a long time, would sometimes be forced to sell at a distressed price. If we have a pre-production contract between a farmer and a sponsor company, then he has effectively entered into a forward contract. A forward contract is very much helpful to the farmer and government has taken care to see that the ownership, right, and title to the land is not compromised in any way.
Right.
Because contract under the Contract Act is for the producer, not for the land. And in order to support these three reforms, government, having looked at in an ecosystem way, has announced also promotion of farmer producers organizations, so that a producers organization gives greater bargaining power to the small and marginal farmers. And it has also announced rupees 100,000 or 1 lakh crore worth of investments to strengthen agriculture logistics.
Right.
So you see all these things together.
Sure.
This is the first time that government has looked at comprehensively.
Absolutely.
And it is in the interest of the farmers. And let me end up by saying, if countries like India and all countries on the earth are signatories to the World Trade Organization, why have they signed it? Only to create a market across the globe for the different kinds of producers, whether it is in the industry or service sector or the agriculture.
Right.
If India has agreed to be a member of the WTO, why are we fragmenting our national market, which is so large in terms of states, in terms of districts, and in terms of APMCs? So I think it is very logical that while agriculture production can be localized, agriculture marketing has to be national. Otherwise, it is the disadvantage of the farmers.
Absolutely.
So I would say that this is all in the interest of farmers.
Right.
And government has made it clear that APMCs will continue because there is one trade channel, and the new act provides for a second trade channel, so that there is a competition between these two. And minimum support price, which is an administered price in a way, whenever agriculture markets fail to discover good prices, then government intervenes to purchase from the farmers different kinds of agriculture.
Indeed.
produce.
Point taken, Dr. Dalwai. You've covered a lot of ground there in your opening intervention. Coming to you now, Mr. Sinha, as Dr. Dalwai was pointing out, the Prime Minister down, everybody in the government has repeatedly said the minimum support price will continue. MSP is here to stay. The APMC, Agriculture Produce Market Committee, will also stay. So there's no change on those two fronts specifically. So why then the protest now? Could it be that certain vested interests have have other things in mind, and that they're propagating some myths against these three new acts?
It is very visible that the present agitation is Punjab centric, partly supported by farmers from Haryana and a little bit supported by farmers from Western UP. In no other part of the country is there any unrest being
seen. So what does that tell you? What does that tell you, Mr. Sinha, about the nature of the protest?
So what it means is that, now why are the Punjab farmers or people in the name of Punjab farmers agitating?
Right.
The Aadhiya system is very well set in Punjab and Haryana. Now, whatever procurement operations are done by the FCI under the MSP, 2.5% is the Aadhiya service charge, which an Aadhiya gets. And on top of that, 3.5% is the Mandi tax, which the state government collects.
Okay.
This together adds up to 6%. This 6% adds up to something like 6,500 crore rupees per year in Haryana and Punjab, which the government of India, through the FCI, pays to the Aadhiyas and to the state government for the MSP operations. Now, the fear the fear of the unknown in the minds of the Aadhiyas of Punjab and to some extent Haryana, is that if the farmer were to get a choice, if a non-Aadhiya is allowed to come to the farmer's doorstep in the village and buy the food grains at a price which does not deduct the 2.5% Aadhi charges and 3.5% Mandi charges, obviously the farmer will get more. Now, if the farmer gets more, then the fear in the mind of the Aadhi is that his present level of income, which is huge and which has been like this for the last 40 years, will to that extent naturally diminish. So the point is that the farmers will actually gain more if the non-Aadhiya comes to the farmer's doorstep. But an atmosphere has been created somewhat successfully for the time being that the farmer also will lose, which is not true. Actually, in the 21st century, in all principles of economic development,
Right.
choice and the freedom to buy and sell is the acme, the underlying basis of economic development. Here, what has happened is because of the APMC Act, the farmer is in the stranglehold of the Artiya.
Right.
He cannot sell to anyone except an Artiya. So it is basically the Artiya's coterie which has a vested interest, and there are some large landowners who also double up as Artiyas,
Absolutely.
whose present high level of income will, they fear, go down in case the farmer were to get a choice of freedom of selling either to the Artiya in the mandi, or if the non-Artiya comes to his doorstep. Now in the mandi, you go to any mandi, a farmer is usually made to wait 3 to 7 days to 10 days to complete the sale transaction and collect his money. So in a way, wherever the Artiya system is well set, the farmer is in the cudgels of the Artiyas. And it looks like it is an Artiya driven agitation. At the moment, the good sign is that since the farmers' representatives talked to the government for 7 hours today, and they've decided to meet again day after tomorrow.
Right.
It means that the farmers are beginning to realize that it is not such a bad deal, and they are willing to go ahead and see to what extent their fears can be removed. So this present climate of opposition that is being built up in certain quarters, that if the government does not repeal the 3 Acts, the farmers won't leave the borders of Delhi.
Right.
That, I think, will go away. The fact that the farmers' leaders have talked to the government for 7 hours, 7 hours is no joke. You sit in one room and talk from 7 hours from 11 to 6, and then again decide to meet after 2 days. It means that both the sides see they are beginning to understand each other far better.
Right.
And hopefully a solution will come out in such a way that the farmer gets a freedom of choice of where to sell and whom to sell. Right now, it must be underscored over and over again.
Absolutely.
The Artiya has got a stranglehold on the farmer.
Right.
The APMCs have got a stranglehold on the farmer. The farmer cannot sell anywhere else.
Right. So, Dr. Dalwai and Mr. Sinha, listening to you, and correct me if I'm wrong, as I understand it, now this benefits the small and marginal farmer in particular, number one. Number two, these 3 acts unshackle the farmer. It allows them to sell their produce to anybody in the country and beyond. It enables them to boost their income. Now, the problem is the middleman, as you all mentioned. But at the same time, there are adequate safeguards in these very 3 acts on the issues of land, for instance, on the issue of dispute redressal, for instance. Now, the demand of some sections of the farming community that why don't we write in the MSP into the Act? Now, is that feasible? Because this is essentially an executive decision, isn't it? Dr. Dalwai?
Yeah. Yes, thank you very much. Let's be very clear that minimum support price is a fallback mechanism.
Right.
As in any economic domain, whether industrial services, agriculture also is subject to certain risks at both production stage and the post-production stage, that is the marketing stage. And therefore, we need to have a safety net. Minimum support price associated with procurement has always been considered as a safety net.
Right.
MSP intervention is made when the markets fail to discover prices to the advantage of the farmers, and what we call it as remunerative prices. We must appreciate that a minimum support price is not necessarily a remunerative price. Government's vision is to ensure that the farmers are able to harvest remunerative prices on a cafeteria of their agriculture commodities.
Right.
And that can happen only when the markets are robust, when market structure is efficient, when the markets are integrated over space and time. and we do not have monopoly of the system. So with the new act today, we will have two alternate channels, namely the APMC route and secondly the direct trade route. So when we have competition between these two channels, and within each of those, once again, competition among different procurers or purchasers, obviously there will be healthy competition, and that will lead to discovery of higher prices. So it is not feasible, it is not tenable, it is not advisable to integrate minimum support price as a part of any of the marketing act.
Fair enough.
If we do that, we would be cutting at the very root of the free and fair trade.
Right.
Because minimum support price also is linked to what is called fair and average quality. Now, without ensuring that we have a fair and average quality of agriculture produce, we cannot say that there has to be a minimum threshold of transaction. On the other hand, under the act itself, whether it is the APMC Act or the new direct trade, the farmers have the freedom and the right to quote the minimum price they want to.
Absolutely.
So they are free to quote even at par with MSP or even above that, based upon the quality of agriculture produced.
Dr. Dalwai, I'm sorry to interrupt you there. I'm running out of time. So may I quickly thank both my guests, Dr. Dalwai and Ms. Sinha, for joining us on Newsnight tonight. Appreciate it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. It has been a pleasure. Thank you. Namaskar.
Right, and now to the other big story we are tracking on Newsnight. Tropical cyclone Burevi is headed towards southern India. It slammed Sri Lanka's eastern coast this week but caused little damage. The NDRF was making preparations to reduce the impact of the cyclone in the landslide or flood-prone areas of Thiruvananthapuram in Kerala. The Indian Met Department issued a red warning to parts of Tamil Nadu and Kerala as well. Now, it said the cyclone was expected to make landfall on Friday. Now, another tropical cyclone, Nivar, had killed at least 23 people in Tamil Nadu last week. The warning comes after the Burevi, packing winds of up to 90 kilometers per hour, hit Sri Lanka on Wednesday, but with little fallout. Here's more.
Cyclone Burevi is hovering over Tamil Nadu and Kerala. It's expected to hit the Gulf of Mannar late at night and coastal Tamil Nadu in the morning hours of Friday. At landfall, it's expected to carry wind speeds of 70 to 90 kilometers per hour. All preparations have been put in place to combat the cyclone at Ramanathapuram, Tirunelveli, Thoothukudi and Kanyakumari. The Meteorological Department has also issued a red alert for these districts of Tamil Nadu besides Thiruvananthapuram, Kollam, Pattanamthitta and Alappuzha districts of South Kerala.
The cyclonic storm Burevi, after crossing Sri Lanka coast on second night, is moving southwestwards and is emerging into Gulf of Mannar. It is expected to cross South Tamil Nadu coast between Pamban and Kanyakumari during 3rd December night and 4th December early morning as a cyclonic storm with wind speed of 70 to 80 km per hour, gusting to 90 km per hour. Moving further southwestwards, it is expected to reach southern parts of Kerala by evening of 4th December as a deep depression with wind speed of 45 to 55 km per hour, gusting to 65 km per hour.
Tamil Nadu Revenue and Disaster Management Minister R.B. Uday Kumar visited the control room and reviewed the preparedness. He also visited Ramanathapuram district. The cyclone effect has already led to a greater intensity of winds and precipitation in the coastal areas of Tamil Nadu, including Rameshwaram. This is the second cyclone in the last 15 days to hit Tamil Nadu due to low pressure in the Bay of Bengal. Cyclone Nivar had hit the coastal areas of the state on the 25th and 26th of November, but did not cause too much damage because of efficient disaster management protocols and center-state coordination. In 2019, Cyclone Fani had hit Odisha, and India's response was an example of efficient and effective disaster management for the whole world. At the time, 11 lakh people were evacuated and moved to safer places, resulting in saving of both lives and property. India has developed a good track record of disaster management, having set in place rapid response mechanisms to mitigate the effects of several cyclonic storms. With inputs from Chandu Nair, Bureau Report, DD India.
All right, joining me are two special guests, Dr. M. Mahapatra Director General of the Indian Meteorological Department, and Mr. Randeep Rana, Deputy Inspector General of the National Disaster Response Force. Gentlemen, welcome to News Night. Dr. Mahapatra, what's the latest information the IMD has on Cyclone Burevi?
Cyclone Burevi weakened into a deep depression near South Tamil Nadu coast, very close to west of Pamban in the evening today.
Okay.
It is moving westwards. It will cross Tamil Nadu coast at any time now, and it will gradually weaken further into a depression by tomorrow morning. So therefore, it will have the intensity of wind speed of about 50 to 60 kilometers per hour now for about 6 hours, and then it will gradually decrease, becoming 40 to 50 kilometers per hour by tomorrow morning over South Kerala coast and adjoining areas of South Tamil Nadu coast. Thereafter, as a low pressure system, it will emerge into Arabian Sea. We are watching the system. At present, under its influence, the maximum wind has been 70 to 80 kilometers per hour, gusting to 90 kilometers per hour near Pamban area around noon to afternoon time. After that, it decreases its intensity, and at present it is 50 to 60 kilometers per hour in association. However, during past 36 hours, there has been heavy to extremely heavy rainfall activity over Tamil Nadu, and this rainfall activity over Tamil Nadu will continue today and tomorrow up to evening. And Kerala rainfall has already started. Kerala rainfall will gradually increase, and heavy to very heavy rainfall at isolated places is also expected over Kerala during next 24 hours.
Right.
From 4th evening, rainfall activity will decrease significantly from Kerala and Tamil Nadu.
Right. Mr. Rana, first Nivar and now Burevi. Now, these are indeed trying times for the NDRF, especially the people living in those coastal areas in Tamil Nadu and Kerala. As Dr. Mahapatra mentioned, the cyclone Burevi is weakening. Now, we've seen in Sri Lanka that Burevi hit the Sri Lankan coast, but it did not make much of impact there. So, can we expect can we expect more, helpful in mitigation efforts by the NDRF in the Indian states?
Yeah, as rightly said, we are amidst back-to-back two cyclones, and though the cyclone has weakened and it is in the status of deep depression as of now, but our preparations are to the tune of the effects as forecasted by IMD, and we have deployed 25 teams in both the states, that is Kerala and Tamil Nadu, and we have been carrying out community awareness programs in both the states in the affected areas. And though the cyclone has weakened, but still there will be a certain quantum of rainfall in those areas, and our teams, they are well braced up if some rainfall generated temporary flood like situation if it emerges, though the likelihood is very less, but our level of preparedness is same as it would have been had it been continued in the intensity of a cyclone, until IMD issues a forecast that now the threat level has decreased significantly. Our preparedness will continue like this only.
Indeed. Dr. Mahapatra, now correct me if I'm wrong, but few people actually understand the meaning of a cyclone or a deep depression. Now, cyclone, if I understand it correctly, is also called a typhoon or a hurricane. Now, it's a storm that develops or forms over the warm oceans, and then it is characterized by high winds and high rain as well. Now, but is there a cyclone season for India? I mean, does it happen throughout the year or at specific times? And do we have the technology now to predict or forecast cyclones going forward as well?
The cyclone develops in a specific season. Over Indian Ocean region, we have got two seasons for formation of cyclones. One is April to June, other one is October to December.
Okay.
If you compare these two seasons, October to December season is more prone for cyclonic activity. Out of, in general, 4 to 5 cyclones per year, we usually get 3 to 4 during this October to December season. For example, this year, during this period of October 20th to till today, we have experienced 3 cyclones. 2 cyclones affected India, especially Tamil Nadu coast, and other one has affected Somalia. These cyclones, however, nowadays are well predicted due to the government's investment in India Meteorological Department and Ministry of Earth Sciences, leading to technological upgradation for early warning system of the cyclones.
I see.
If you compare the early warning services of India Meteorological Department with all the developed countries in the world, you will find our accuracy is either same or better than all the leading countries in the world. As a result, if you count the number of deaths due to cyclones in recent years, it is significantly reduced from 10,000 in 1999. Now it is about 10s and 20s, or in case of Burevi, it is 3 only. So it is possible because of the improvement in early warning and also the response mechanism developed by Government of India and the state governments jointly to address the requirements of preparedness, planning, and mitigation.
Right. And finally, Mr. Rana, in your line of work for the NDRF in particular, what are the lessons that the NDRF might have learned from previous episodes, including Cyclone Nivar, in terms of deployment of personnel, the number of personnel, the evacuations of locals, the number of shelters required? So what are the lessons, if you can help our viewers understand the amount of work that goes into an operation by the NDRF on such occasions?
Okay. We have learned that apart from NDRF preparedness, the coordination mechanism plays a very vital role.
Right.
And that is from the top level to the lowest level at the implementation stage. And another important aspect is the involvement of community. In all such deployments, NDRF very closely works with the community living in coastal areas, and be it evacuation plan or the do's and don'ts to mitigate the effects of the cyclone. We discuss with the community, we conduct awareness programs in the community along with the agencies of the state government.
Right.
And better coordination and the involvement of community at each stage, it has proved to be very helpful in our operations.
All right, on that note, Dr. Mahapatra and Mr. Rana, thank you for joining us on NewsNet. Appreciate it. Right, moving on, the big day has finally been announced by none other than the superstar himself. Tamil Nadu's most successful actor with a massive and dedicated fan following, Rajinikanth, also known as Talaivar, has decided to take the plunge into politics. On 31st December, he will reveal details of his plan to enter the fiercely contested politics in the state of Tamil Nadu. The announcement set fans into a frenzy across the state.
Rajinikanth's fans celebrating in Tamil Nadu after he declared his intentions to start a political innings. Crackers and distribution of sweets marked the sharing of the news by vociferous fans. The megastar's fans are ecstatic after Rajinikanth's announcement. They celebrated with gusto outside his residence in Chennai on the much-awaited occasion. After a long wait for his fans, megastar Rajinikanth says he'll make a political debut by launching his political party in January. He will share the details on the 31st of December. Rajinikanth made the announcement a day after meeting key office bearers of his platform, Rajini Makkal Mandram. The actor says he'll make his political agenda public soon. Tamil Nadu elections are due next year in the summer. Rajinikanth says his party will form the government after the elections and change the political landscape of Tamil Nadu.
All the Talaivar fans strongly believe in his leadership. We also believe that this is the right time to reclaim Tamil Nadu to its original glory. I believe that Talaivar, as a fan, I believe that Talaivar would lead the change.
It is a wonderful moment for all of us, not just as a fan. We are great fans, but it is not for the fans alone. It is for the entire people of Tamil Nadu.
It was a gift given by Talaivar on his birthday month, and I think this is going to be a great election.
Rajinikanth has been active in the political landscape of Tamil Nadu over the last 2 years, but has refrained from making a formal announcement about entering politics till now. The announcement has changed the contours of next year's assembly elections. Rajnikant has an ardent fan following in the state where the lines between real and real life in politics more often than not have overlapped. Starting with MGR and M. Karunanidhi, Tamil Nadu politics has been influenced and dominated by film stars. Rajnikant has been the biggest star in the southern state for the past many years, adoringly called Talaiva by millions of fans. With his ancestral roots in Maharashtra, Rajni stayed away from an active say in Tamil Nadu politics but has now taken a plunge which many had anticipated long back. Rajnikant has tasted political success when he famously gave a hint to his fans after a tussle with the then CM J. Jayalalitha. She lost the 1996 elections after the fans gave a clarion call to defeat the AIA-DMK. Newsnight Desk, DD India.
Now, 4th December is Navy Day. Talking to journalists on the eve of Navy Day, the Navy Chief Admiral Karambir Singh said work on a new aircraft carrier is on. It's only a matter of time before the indigenous aircraft carrier sails on the high seas bearing the tricolour.
For more than 3 years now, India has been operating only one aircraft carrier after INS Virat was decommissioned in 2017. But soon, there will be a significant enhancement in the Navy's second strike and deterrence capabilities in the Indian Ocean region. While INS Vikramaditya continues to patrol the high seas with its fleet of MiG-29K fighters, work on another aircraft carrier is progressing swiftly. Basin trials of indigenous aircraft carrier, or the IAC, have been successfully conducted at Cochin Shipyard. Basin trials are primarily aimed at testing the main propulsion plant of the ship in harbour and is a precursor to the ensuing sea trials. It's already being called INS Vikrant after the most successful aircraft carrier of the Indian Navy, the name that filled Indian hearts with pride and the adversaries with fear. With successful completion of basin trials, IAC has entered the final phase of the project. The sea trials are planned in the first half of 2021, and it's only a matter of time that IAC, the nation's dream, would be sailing the high seas bearing the national tricolour.
The Navy is also contributing to nation building by firmly anchoring its capability enhancement endeavours on indigenization and self-reliance. Our wholehearted support to the Atmanirbharta initiative plows back a significant portion of Navy's budget into the Indian economy. Our comprehensive engagements and partnerships with the shipbuilding industry, manufacturing and services sectors, MSMEs, startups and technology verticals support national prosperity while enhancing the Navy's capabilities.
The IAC project is also a true example of Atmanirbhar Bharat, with close to 75% of the material and equipment on board being indigenous. This includes raw materials such as 23,000 tons of steel, 2,500 kilometers of electric cables, 150 kilometers of pipes. Further, over 50 Indian manufacturers have been directly involved in this project. Close to 2,000 Indians have received direct employment on board IAC on a daily basis, and over 40,000 have received indirect employment. In addition, about 80 to 85% of the project cost of approximately 20,000 crore rupees has been ploughed back into the Indian economy. The IAC will add significant muscle to the Indian Navy, propelling it further to pursue its role and mandate as a blue water navy. It will also mark a significant leap for India. Very few nations in the world have the capability to operate an aircraft carrier, and still fewer have attempted to make it from scratch and succeeded. India will soon enter a select club, so far restricted to just a few powers. With Sudhir Yadav in Delhi, Newsnight Desk, DD India.
And talking about the Navy, Indian Navy Chief Admiral Karambir Singh also said that the Navy is prepared to handle the dual challenge of both COVID-19 pandemic and China's attempts to change the line of actual control. Addressing a press conference, Admiral Singh said the Navy's activities are in close coordination and synergy with the Indian Army and the Indian Air Force. He said the 3 Chinese warships are in the Indian Ocean region, which he said have been there since 2008 for anti-piracy patrols. He asserted that the Navy has an SOP in place to tackle the situation in case of an infringement by the Chinese vessels. Admiral Singh informed that adding a push to the goal of self-sustainability, 41 of the 43 warships and submarines, including the indigenous aircraft carrier, will be built indigenously in the country for the Indian Navy.
नौसेना है वो जो भी एक्टिविटी कर रही है, it is in close coordination and synergy with the Army and the Air Force to produce or the desired results.
Moving on, India has said that Pakistan is trying to link the case of Kulbhushan Jadhav with another prisoner's case. MEA spokesperson Anurag Srivastava has said that Shahnawaz Noon was selected by the Indian High Commission to appear in the case for release and repatriation of an Indian prisoner, Mohammad Ismail, who has completed his sentence but continues to be in jail in Pakistan. However, during the proceedings of the case regarding Mr. Ismail, Pakistan Attorney General raised the matter pertaining to Jadhav, though the two cases are not connected in any way. He said that Noon has misrepresented the position of the High Commission. He was clearly told by the High Commission that he had no authority to represent either the government of India or Kulbhushan Jadhav.
Mr. Noon has therefore misrepresented the position of our High Commission. He was clearly told by the High Commission that he had no authority to represent either the government of India or Shri Kulbhushan Jadhav. And our mission in Islamabad has written to Mr. Noon reiterating that he has no authority to represent Mr. Jadhav and has no basis to suggest that the Indian CDA would appear in the court.
Right, and now the news from the Jammu and Kashmir District Development Council elections, the third phase of which will be held on Friday. 33 constituencies will go to the polls and for the third phase, as I mentioned, of the Jammu and Kashmir's District Development Council elections. And time now for all the news related to COVID-19 pandemic in India in our COVID Wrap segment.
India has reported more daily recoveries than the daily new cases during the past 24 hours, while 35,551 persons were found to be infected with COVID-19 in India. During the same period, India has registered 40,726 new recoveries. It has led to a net decline of 5,701 cases from the total active case load in the last 24 hours. The trend of more daily recoveries than the daily cases has led to a continuous contraction of India's active case load. It has ensured that India's present active case load of 4,22,943 consists of just 4.44% of India's total positive cases. According to the Indian Council of Medical Research, total number of samples tested so far is 14,35,57,647, including 11,11,698 samples tested on December 2nd. Supreme Court has stayed the Gujarat High Court's direction to the Gujarat government to impose community services on those who are not adhering with norms of the face covers and masks. High Court on Wednesday has asked the state government to make a policy to impose community services as a penalty on those who are violating COVID-19 safety norms. Delhi government has informed the Delhi High Court that for now no night curfew will be imposed in the national capital in view of COVID-19 situation. It has taken a considered view after assessing the situation not to introduce restrictions on movement at night.
And talking about the pandemic, the US pharmaceutical company Pfizer says it could have enough doses of its COVID-19 vaccine than required in a year's time.
Pharmaceutical major Pfizer's chief executive Albert Bourla has said that he was confident that by the end of 2021 there would be more vaccine doses than required to fight the COVID-19 pandemic. His remarks came after Britain approved a vaccine produced by Pfizer and its German biotechnology partner BioNTech on Wednesday. The two companies say that their vaccine is 95% effective.
So we are doing right now everything we can to increase the manufacturing capacity that we have. But the challenge is that we need to increase it in the next few months. I feel very comfortable that by the end of 2021, for example, we'll have more doses than the world needs.
The British Medicines and Healthcare Products Regulatory Agency, or the MHRA, granted emergency use approval just 23 days after Pfizer published the first data from its final stage clinical trial. US and the EU regulators are sifting through the same Pfizer vaccine trial data but have yet to give their approval. Pfizer has said that the vaccine would be an effective tool in fighting the spread of the pandemic, but governments needed to ensure that other measures are not relaxed in the meantime. It has said that governments have to move in a very strategic way and need to listen to the experts. Newsnight Desk, DD India.
Meanwhile, Britain's Prime Minister Boris Johnson said it would be some month before all the most vulnerable people received COVID-19 vaccines. Meanwhile, England's Health Service chief said the bulk of the jabs would be given between January and April. Now, the UK approved Pfizer's COVID-19 vaccine on Wednesday. The first vaccinations would begin this month with a phased rollout plan as more doses become available. US President-elect Joe Biden on Wednesday promised a group of workers hit by the raging COVID-19 pandemic that more aid would be on its way. Any emergency aid approved by the US legislature before he takes office would be only a quote-unquote down payment. Republican and Democrat lawmakers are trying to resolve a months-long standoff over a stimulus package for businesses affected by coronavirus shutdowns, as well as the billions who have lost their jobs. In Thailand, at least 5 deaths were reported on Thursday after flash floods caused by monsoon rains hit 7 provinces in the country's southern region. The floods started a week ago but had receded by Thursday, having affected more than 500,000 people. The impacted region is home to Thailand's major rubber plantations, accounting for the majority of the world's natural rubber supply. Boeing 737 MAX staged its first post-grounding flight with media on board on Wednesday as it sought to demonstrate to passengers that the redesigned jet was safe after a 20-month ban. The jet was grounded in March 2019 after 2 crashes in 5 months killed 346 people, marking the industry's worst safety crisis in decades and undermining U.S. aviation regulatory leadership. Australia's government will now have the power to veto any deal struck between local authorities and foreign governments. Prime Minister Scott Morrison said the new law was not aimed at any one country, but it was widely seen by analysts as directed towards China. Now, under the terms of the new law, Australia's foreign minister can veto agreements made by local institutions if they adversely affect Australia's foreign relations or are inconsistent with Australia's foreign policy. The status of Australia's Great Barrier Reef was moved to critical and deteriorating by a global authority in nature conservation. Rising sea temperatures and poor water quality are the 2 biggest threats to the Great Barrier Reef. The reef was World Heritage listed in 1981 by UNESCO as the most extensive and spectacular coral reef ecosystem on the planet. Holiday season officially kicked off in New York City with the 88th annual lighting of the Rockefeller Center Christmas tree. People were not allowed at the ceremony, which usually draws hundreds of holiday well-wishers due to the coronavirus pandemic. Now, this year's tree will be on display through early January. That's a wrap, but news continues here on DD India. You can catch all the latest updates on our social media, mobile and digital platforms. Don't forget, it's a very simple task. Just wear a mask. Join DD India's Mask Up campaign to beat COVID-19. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.